This is video 2 of a 4-part series on voting apportionment methods in Google Sheets. In the first video, I created a spreadsheet for Hamilton's method, which allowed me to do a lot of calculations pretty quickly, just inputting a population block, representatives, and then looking at my initial proportions and making adjustments by adding a couple representatives to the population blocks that had the highest decimal point after that whole number. Now, Jefferson's method, I'll just duplicate Hamilton's method. It's going to be very similar. We'll have a little change in how we approach it, but the basic idea is instead of doing this recalculation, we'll clear those data out and clear that color out as well. Instead, I'll make this modified divisor change. So I'll reduce the number of people per representative. For example, I could drop from 1683 all the way down to 1680 potentially, and it will kind of reduce the perceived representation of some of these blocks, but eventually we'll make room for one more representative or one more block of these people to fit in somewhere, and we'll be able to make adjustments that maybe work a little bit more proportionally to population that will help the big blocks a lot more. But it will also reduce those paradoxes that came up with Hamilton's method. Now the recalculation that we needed to do is to recalculate this quota, dividing the population block by our modified divisor and filling that down. We may have the same issue in terms of the cell references. We want the A2 to move down with that fill. We don't want the H6 to move down. Freeze in the $ in front of the 6 and refill to get those recalculated quotas or quotients to find a division. And now I'll do that final portion again. Notice how I did change step 3. So down here, I would want to modify the divisor and match that up with this color coding here. So the final portion should be done automatically using the equals round down again from this recalculated quota. It's got a great suggestion for the autofill there. My new total and remaining reps aren't working out quite right, and that's because it's looking at the wrong column for that sum. Here I should be doing the sum of column E now, which is where I've got that final portioning. And here I did not drop my divisor enough, so I need to make that even smaller, maybe going all the way down to 1600 and seeing how that works. That's not quite enough. How about 1500? And it looks like I got it right on the mark there, getting all 11 of those representatives divvied out. And we can double check on the work. It looks like a 1 went up to a 2, and another 1 went up to a 2. And here we had a 2 going up to a 3. So it was the middle 2 that were affected by the middle 3 that were affected by this. And that is exactly the same result that we had from Hamilton's method for that final apportionment. Now, if we tried a different problem, like this problem where I had 39 representatives across these counties, I can change those two things. Again, keep in mind you may have to adjust the number of rows by filling down more or less if you have bigger or smaller chunks of data over here. But getting back to it, I've got my red and my yellow updated. I didn't do the green yet. That's at 28,230. Let's try 28,000. With such a big number, I may need to go down by thousands to get it to move. There we went from a 2 to a 1. 26,000 overshoots it, so 26,500 might make the right target. And here we see a 5 went to a 6. A 15 went to a 16, and we only had 2 remaining. So looking at those two, those were the 2 that were affected by this. If I had done Hamilton's method, I would not have increased this block with 430,000 from 15 to 16. Instead, I would have increased this smaller one from 5 to 6. And you can see that going from 5 to 6 for that small block is a pretty big percentage jump for the Hamilton's method. Instead, we get a small percentage jump from 15 to 16. It does make sense that they would have more representation, but Jefferson's method still is flawed as well, and that is why we will check out the next method in video 3.